So we're going to continue Hilchos Niddah Siman Kuf Pei Vav. It's a pretty short Siman, even though there's a lot of background information in the Gemara, quite a few shitas. It's pretty straightforward. One of the things that I find in Halacha and in Gemara too is that sometimes some of the Meforshim try to point out that there is a machlokes or that there's a stira in the mechaber when I don't think there is. I'm against believing that the mechaber has a contradiction. I'm sure if we dug enough, we would find that there's an explanation for why he said what he said. The same thing with Rashi and Tosfos, even though they do have different opinions about many things. It's not always a machlokes necessarily. Sometimes it's possible that he's pretty much just clarifying Rashi's different way, or that he means to say something else that is not necessarily clear. Somehow, I don't know why, but there's a tendency to point to machlokes, to point that there's a stira when it's not necessarily the case. Many times, and I'm not the only one to say it, many times you will find that perhaps they do agree, even though it's not so evident, but they may agree. So here we will run into one of those examples, one of those situations where there tends to be quite a few who hold, you see the Mechaber contradicts himself between what he said here and what he says now. And we saw this, we came across this in Basar in Taaruvot. There's a reason. Mechaber had siyata d'shmaya, he had tremendous divine assistance. He was told he will have assistance in publishing his great work, the Shuchan Aruch, that no mistake should come out. This is something being written for all of Klal Yisrael. And even though it may not include in his words all the customs, which is why the Ramah wrote his Pirush, nonetheless, to say that he contradicts himself is to me, it's very harsh. I don't believe he contradicts himself ever. But perhaps we don't understand. In our limited minds, we don't understand why he said what he said, and it's our problem, not his. And sometimes it may be possible to figure out why he said what appears to be very, very different, clearly different. There's nobody doubting that. He says something completely different, a whole different psak for the exact similar scenario, the exact similar situation. Okay, we have to figure why he said that then, and why he's saying this now, why then he holds like somebody else, and now he's holding like somebody else. Okay, so we have to figure that out. But to say contradiction is a bad word. Contradiction means he made a mistake. Contradicts himself. It's not a contradiction, it's our lack of understanding of why he does certain things, why he writes. Sometimes he writes the halacha, and then he says, by the way, others hold this way. So we have a rule in the mechaber, stam and yesh oimr. Right? There's a stam, that he wrote, this is the halacha. Then he says, by the way, there are those who hold like this. So what's the halacha? The halacha is like the first one. Okay? And somehow there should be some clarification as to why he said something one way, and now he says it a different way. All right.
You made a comment.
Yeah.
You said told.
By a malach. Beruach HaKodesh, yeah, malach, yeah. It's written down. Yeah, it's written down by himself. He wrote all of this down. He documented all the insights, or if you want to call it that, or all the commentaries and all the conversation he had. It's not really a conversation. All that he heard, all the communication to him through the malach. It was a tremendous schut. There's nobody doubting that he was on a very, very high level, that he be taught mishamayim, even though there are very clear rules as to how he arrived at halacha. He says it himself. He used the Rambam, he used the Rif, right? He used the Rosh, he used various Rishonim. And basically, he had this task of not just making up a halacha, but coming up with the halacha based on the pillars of halacha that came before him. And those pillars, who were real Rishonim, even though he's at the end of the beginning of the Achronim, he's talking about the period of transition between the Geonim and Rishonim, leading up to the Rosh, of course, which is already later on. Nonetheless, he knows what he was doing. Even though there are other opinions that are very much acceptable too, there's Rashba, there's the Ran, there's the Ramban. Nonetheless, he relied on the pillars, and this is after, of course, going through the Gemaras, after seeing what the Maskana of the Gemara was, and basically weighing everything as it applies today, according to the best that we have, was in our tradition, and as far as it is relevant to our day. The Rambam is different than the Mechaber in the sense that the Rambam gave psak halacha on all areas of Judaism, even that which is not relevant today. halachas of the Beis Hamikdash, korbanot, right? Mechaber took the halacha as it is today, as it applies today, and in some areas, obviously, he had a need to specify, for some reason, in the same halacha, that there are others who hold differently. So he's not excluding them. But to say that he himself contradicts himself is a very harsh statement, and it's incorrect to say that, I believe. One can say this, for some reason, he says differently there. Why? Well, let's see if we can figure it out. A lot of people work very, very hard in figuring out a Rambam. What did the Rambam mean? And they're very careful in analyzing every single word. Oh, he said this extra word, he meant something specific by saying this word. He would not have added an extra word. And of course, there could be a lot of truth to that, that every single word can make a difference, because our tradition says that the Rishonim especially, all that they wrote was Beruach HaKodesh. In other words, at least they had Ruach HaKodesh guiding them. So, obviously, we take their words seriously. Nonetheless, the halacha is not always like the Rambam. The halacha, Mechaber came down this world with that mission, is to bring the halacha as crystal clear as possible, based on many, many opinions, that he fine-tuned it as best as possible, being guided from above as well, of course, as to what the halacha is today for the majority of Am Yisrael. And majority, I say, because the Yemenites have some different traditions about certain things, and the Ashkenazim, Sidim, and those who follow the Kabbalah have some different traditions, but that is only in a few specific areas, and not in all areas. Baruch Hashem, the majority of halachas is the same across the board for everyone. So, in trying to understand the beginning, or the Siman, the whole Siman Kuf Pei Vav, that deals with a woman checking herself, whether it's before relations or after relations. There are times that a woman may need to check. Now, we did cover, just briefly, the need to do that in general, and that is that in the Mechaber in Siman Kuf Pei Daled says that, there are times that a woman has to check herself, that she has to be aware of, and that is if she has a Veset Kavua, of course, and we'll be talking about that more in depth and more in detail, how to do that, how the Bdika is done, and so forth. So there's a difference between Bishat Aveset, and now we're going to talk a lot about Shelo Bishat Aveset also. In other words, during the time that she's expecting her period, what happens then, what the husband needs to be aware of, what they cannot do when she's expecting it, and Shelo B'Sha'at HaVeset, in other words, when she doesn't have a Veset Kavua, when she has to be concerned about different times, like Haflaga, or Beinonis, Yom HaChodesh, which we haven't really gotten to yet to talk about. He discusses it later, that a woman who does not have a regular period has to be concerned about checking herself, and the husband about being away from her during certain times that are prone, or there's a possibility that she may see her. Now, during the time that she's expecting it, before she can be with her husband, she has to check herself, because she's expecting it then. Right? So we spoke about that briefly, what happens if she forgot to check, what happens if she did not see it. Okay, but at least we came across the concept of checking. Checking at times is important. Okay, that makes sense, especially if she's expecting it. But the Mechaber said something very unusual. I mean, it's not difficult to understand, but it's unusual because in this Siman he will say something different. In Siman Kuf Pei Daled he said that as far as women who have a Veset Kavua, the husband can be with his wife when it's not her Veset, and she doesn't have to check herself. Why should she? She's not expecting it. Aval shelo b'shas tashmish, she says, you know what, but if it's not the regular time when she's having a relationship, it's during the day, after breakfast. Kol hamarbe livdok harei ze meshubachat. Whoever checks herself, the better it is. Why? Why should she check herself? Well, just in case. Nothing wrong. And of course the Mechaber is careful to say, is sheloi b'shas tashmish, because a lot of poskim are going to tell us in this Siman that during the time of tashmish, the relationship, if she's not supposed to, she shouldn't. Why can't she volunteer to check? No, because the husband might be afraid. He's always checking, she's careful, she's always too afraid. What is she so paranoid about? She's not expecting it, right? So he may have some hesitations all the time. We don't want to cause the husband to have unnecessary hesitation because his wife is being overreactive, maybe we can use that word, reacting to something that she shouldn't be. So, but the Mechaber was clear therefore to say that Shelo b'shas tashmish. Okay, there is such an opinion in the Gemara that women should always check themselves. Women, check yourself from time to time. Now, the reason why that's not really done today, for the most part, women just don't check themselves all the time. If it's not the time, is because today is very different than the time of the Gemara. In the time of the Gemara, there was a need to check, because women were oskot betahara, or betaharot. In other words, they involved themselves, they were preoccupied with things that needed to be pure and clean. So if they were unclean, they would not be able to come in contact with that which is obviously. So they had reason to check themselves. Otherwise, they would be throwing some stuff in the garbage. Not exactly. I mean, they would have to dispose of it in a proper way if it was truma, right? So, I mean, it could have caused them a loss as a result of them touching something that to be handled with clean hands. By the way, that one of the reasons we wash our hands for bread is taken from the hands should be pure, the hands should be clean. Handling the bread. Somewhat similar in idea to the whole concept back then of handling truma and tahara with clean hands. So why should a woman check herself today? Today, the only reason she needs to check herself is leba'ala, for her husband. Be clean to be with her husband. Obviously, that's important. She needs to know she's clean or not. Otherwise, it's a big sin. But that checking, it's not something that has to be done all the time, just like tahara was. So that's what Siman Kuf Pei Vav is somewhat about. So perhaps before we read it inside, I'm going to just tell you a little bit of the background in the Gemara. Because it is because of the Gemara and the Mishnah is there that there's a little bit of confusion, and that is why we have a Shita of Rashi, a Shita of Rosh, a Rashba. You have so many Shitas because some Gemaras, I mean, it's just a fact, some Gemaras are a little bit unclear as what was meant. Not everything is always black and white. So therefore, sometimes you can have different interpretations of what appears to be the same Gemara. I mean, on that you can also say, how could that be? Why should there be differing opinions? Well, differing opinions can be when things are not clear. That, yes. But sometimes you'd be surprised that even though they appear to be saying something differently, they are actually saying the same thing, but they're talking about something different. So that's where we have to be careful not to just say, oh, there's a machlokes rishonim. Well, not always exactly so. Maybe the rishonim are talking a little bit of in a different scenario. It has to be the same scenario. If the scenario is exactly the same and the opinions are clearly yes, no, right? Then you can say, okay, they hold differently for whatever reason. So here is one of those Gemaras that you have different interpretations as to what, at least, what is the maskana, what is the conclusion of the Gemara, or what the Mishnah says. Do we follow that Mishnah, or do we follow another Tana, and so forth? Who do we follow? What is the din? So, on the one hand, in the Gemara it's mashma that the various bdikot, the various checking that the woman needs to do, and I say various because from the Gemara it's mashma in one place that a woman should check herself quite often, and that women customarily do that. On the one hand, it's very clear from the Gemara, this is clear, that they would do that because of taharot. In other words, shemayu oskot betaharot, because of their involvement in taharot, that is why you have repeated checking. Okay, that makes sense. And as a result of them checking for the taharot, they would therefore also check for their husband. Since we required of them to check for taharot, we're going to require them to check for their husbands. We're doing this for that. In other words, had we not had to deal with taharot, we perhaps would not require it just for the husband. So that is what really pretty much stands out pretty clearly in the Gemara. And the majority of the Rishonim hold that's really what the Gemara always intended all along. That the reason, if at all, a woman would have to check herself at certain times, other than right before her Vesed, right? Other than if that's the time of Vesed. If she would have to check herself, it would only be because they're checking themselves. We made them check for Taharot. We also make them check for their husband. But it's not a real me'ikar din, it's not necessary. There are, however, some who learn that there is a clear indication, also pretty clear from the Gemara, from the Mishnah especially, that there was a concept that women who were tznuot, who were very modest and careful, they were machmir. So that's important. It was more of a chumrah, machmir on themselves to always check. Oh, always check. Apparently, this may be unrelated to tahara. Maybe they always check. They were the Jewish women. We know already from Hilchas Niddah from before, when we talked about the chumras that Bnot Israel took upon themselves. And eventually we'll talk about it again when we talk about stains. There's quite a few chumras in Hilchas. The whole idea of waiting 5 days, then 7 clean days is a whole big deal that we spoke about. How did that come about? According to the Torah, the standard, the halacha of Niddah is just 7 days. Finito. That's it, no more. She saw blood all 7 days. She can go to the mikveh at the end of the 7th day if there's no more blood. Today doesn't work like that, right? 7 clean days after the blood stopped. So, okay, there are chumras. But Bnei Israel took upon themselves certain chumras. The chachamim were machmir, made certain takonas as well as a result of the possibility of confusion. Okay, fine. So there is an opinion that holds that here with checking, other than the time of the Veset, there may be a need, according to some, for a woman to do so if she wants to be machmer. Okay, if she wants to be, that could be compatible with what the Mechaber said. Now, that's the way I see it. If all you say is, if she wants to, then that's compatible with the Mechaber, and it's not a stira, because the Mechaber seemed to say those words. And it said, does that mean he requires it? No, that's for sure not. There's no word of requirement there. For sure not. He said something very, very nice. Whoever does so is looked upon favorably. In other words, because there is such an opinion in the Gemara. So he brings it down. It's a nice thing to do. A woman wants to always be checked. Make sure there's no mistake. Okay. I would even venture to say that that's what the Mesilas Yesharim is talking about. You start with Zehirut. What's the first midah? Caution. In other words, you want to grow in Yiras Shamayim, God-fearing, you start with Zehirut. You start with caution, to be careful. You check the ingredients of every bag before you buy it. What if it says an OU? Should I still check the ingredients? Well, why should I do that? Don't you trust? Well, they've been forged at times. This is true, by the way. Yes, they've been forged. They've made a mistake. They've already removed the hashgacha, but these are the last bags. Somehow they got through. Do you want to be machmer and check all the ingredients? Okay, let's say you check. But what if you don't know something? You're going to call? It's very difficult. It's not easy. Now with bugs, you have no choice. If something has a chazaka for infestation, you can't eat it before you check it. If it has a chazaka, in other words, you know that this has potential problems. Something that doesn't have a chazaka, what if this doesn't have a chazaka? Should you check it for bugs anyway? It's nice. Why not? What if it's difficult? Well, now that's what we have halachas. If it's too difficult, why should you do it? If there's no chazaka, we haven't heard that this should. But they just found some bugs in garlic. Did you hear about that? Underneath some of the peels of garlic. Very unusual. Not inside the garlic. I don't think any bug would like to be inside the garlic. But anyway, somehow above, right between the peel, the shell, whatever you call it. Anyway, yeah. Is it all over the world? Well, they claim yes, and all the garlic that came from this country, from this country. When did it get to it? Perhaps the bugs came later, not at the time it grew. Who knows? But anyway, all right. If there's a problem, we know that once there's a reusa means once there's a problem, okay, then we look into it. And we're going to see major problems. Hashem Yishma. May God protect all the Jewish women from the problem that we'll be learning about in the next couple of weeks. A little bit we'll touch upon that day, and that is a woman who sees blood every time she's with him. She cannot live with him. They have to go their way. Each one has to go. There can't be any interest. Every time, as a result, and this can happen. This can happen. We'll talk about it. We'll try to try to figure out how this happens, based on what we know. So anyway, here, what we know so far is that there is a concept called sneer, chumras. You want to be strict, you want to check, fine. But do you need to check always? No. That's the way we hold. I just gave you a little bit of the background of the Gemara. What we hold, the majority of Rishonim hold, is for the most part, in most situations, it's not the time of the vessel to check. If it's during the time of the vessel, we already know what a woman is to do, what the husband has to be aware of. But just to check herself before she's with her husband and after she's done with her husband, what for? And on the contrary, he might get fearful. Why create this kind of an atmosphere? All right, so in summarizing what the majority of Rishonim hold, the shita of Roiv Rishonim is that a woman who has a veset, she has a regular period, and is not having to do anything with tahara, does not have to check herself not before tashmish and not after tashmish. Okay? Doesn't have to check herself. Doesn't have to be concerned about it. Maybe there's a remote chance that she'll see. No, what for? The Rambam, however, learned that a woman that has a veset, even though she has a veset, and it's every 28 days, and now it's day 20, okay? No reason to check, but the Rambam says even a woman who has a veset, before tashmish, she doesn't have to check really, minadin, but because of tznius, she should. I think he's pretty much the only one who. But at least we understand that this is a chumrah, because she has a veset. So this is only because of a chumrah. Tznius. After tashmish, he says, she and her husband have to check themselves. Why? There was always a chashash, a concern that she may see blood as a result of the physical interaction, as a result of the intimacy. There is a possibility, there's a chashash. So the Rambam took the opinion, the stricter opinion, even for a woman that has a veset, after the tashmish, every single time she's with her husband, the woman and the husband, each one checks themselves with a cloth. Any blood? No, fine. And most of the times it will be clean. But Rambam holds there's a chashash. So the first b'dika is check yourself before you're with the husband, the man with the woman. And afterwards, he says, no, it's a requirement because of that chashash, both man and the woman, just in case she did see makmas tashmit. We hold like the majority of Rishonim, that a woman that has a veset, not only does she not need to check, she should not check. That's an important point. Not only does she not need, she should not, because we don't want her husband to too fearful to approach her. Why is she checking? Must feel she's getting it. I don't take a chance. She's not expecting it. She has a veset. Then why check yourself? So what did the Mechaber say before? Areizim meshubachat. Doesn't that appear to be like he's saying like the Rambam there? You see what appears to be like they say, oh, you're contradiction. It's not a contradiction. Why should it be? You think that the Mechaber can make such a mistake and say two differing opinions with only a few simanim apart? It's like he doesn't remember what he wrote. Why even say that? Then why did he say that? Obviously, because he does tend to bring opinions of others in a way that this is not the din, but I can tell you that there are those who say that it's a nice thing to do. That is a concept of Bal Nefesh, Yachmir Alas, where din is different. Bal Nefesh, one who's concerned about doing the right thing, to be strict. Here I'm going to tell you the real halacha. But why here? Because here, this is where we're learning about it. There, I'm not going to tell you the all halacha. I'm just going to tell you because I spoke a little bit about Bedika there. I'll just tell you that it's a nice thing to do. And it's because Rambam brings it, yes, it's true, brings it the Gemara, the Mishnah. They talk about it. It's a good thing. But not in front of the husband. That's why he says, Shelo b'shas tashmish. Make sure to say there, Shelo b'shas tashmish, which is a whole different idea than what he's talking about here. The husband is not around. Wants to check herself. Why not? There's nothing wrong with that. On the contrary, there is such an opinion. Go ahead and do it if you want. It's meshubachat, he says. It's a very special thing. But it's not a requirement. That's not the halacha. So there's a difference when the Mechaber says something because it's nice, there's an opinion like that, but he's not telling us what the halacha is there. Here he's telling us what the halacha is. Isha, Sif Aleph, Isha sheyesh la veset kavua, eina tzricha b'dika klal. If she has a veset, she does not need it. That's the halacha. That's it. Lo lifnei tashmish, lo lachar tashmish, ve'adraba. He says, ve'adraba, if anything, en la livdok b'fnei ba'ala. She should definitely not check before her husband, in front of her husband, b'shas tashmish, at the time they're together, close to it, kedei shelo yeh libo nokfo, so that his heart should not be concerned. He should have no fear or hesitation as a result of that. So he tells us very clearly the halacha. And he tells us, but you know what? The Rambam. Matzrich livdok, achar tashmish, hi be'ed echad vehu be'ed echad. The Rambam did require, there is a Rambam, who requires the man to check with his own cloth, the woman to check with her own cloth, the lirot bahem, and to see shema ra'ata, because so this is afterwards. Maybe she did see dam b'shas tashmish, Uleda'ato, and according to the same Rambam, hatznuot, those modest women, botkot atzman af kodem tash, even before tash, just the women. So what does the Ramah say to all of that? He says, Mechaber, thank you for bringing the Rambam, but svara rishona hi eikar. We go along with what you first brought. The first halacha is the main halacha. V'chein hagu, that's the meaning everywhere. So why bring the Rambam? Because the Rambam is one of the pillars on which he generally relies on to formulate a halacha. And this halacha is so different in the Rambam that he's making us aware that, by the way, there is a shita like that. But I did not paskin here like him. That's all. Not to make it too complicated. That's the reason why he mentions it. That's all. I mean, it's okay. Why not mention it? He's telling us, I didn't forget the Rambam. Some people like to point out, he forgot to check what the Rambam said. I didn't forget. I'm aware of what he says, and nonetheless, I don't paskin like him. You see what I mean? I'll bring him down. I honor him. I use him in arriving at Hapsak Halacha, but not this time. But I'll mention it. Why? Because his opinion is very, very different. And don't therefore be machmir like him, because we hold like the majority. And there's nobody that argues here, pretty much. He's almost by himself, the Ram, almost. I mean, there are some who hold similar to him, as we will see. Sefer Chut Shoni, I saw, bringing down, that when we exempt a woman who has a Veset Kavua from checking, is as follows. Even if the time of her Veset did arrive, okay, and she already checked herself, she's required to. Veset arrived, but I'm clean, which enables her to be with her husband, that check. Even then, it's her Veset. She doesn't have to check herself right before and right after, which I would say, well, maybe during the time of the Veset, she should follow like the Ram. No, we hold that there's no reason to suspect. She already checked herself that moment when she's supposed to be getting it, approximately. So he says that it's a nice chiddush, because I would think, well, maybe during the Veset she should, because she might be getting it any minute. You see what I mean? It's her Veset. She may be getting it. Well, why take a chance? No, we hold she doesn't. Once she did her one check for her Veset time, she doesn't have to check herself right before the Tashmish, right after, because it may be coming any minute. She's clean. Interesting. All right, the next halacha is isha she'en la veset. Doesn't have a veset kavua, meaning. En la veset usually means that. She doesn't have a regular period, she's irregular. Okay. We will be learning the halachas of what a woman needs to do. Women who are very regular have it easy, relatively speaking. Women who are not regular, there's different kinds of irregularity. We'll get to that later. But here, as far as Bedika is concerned, during the time that she's not expecting, in other words, it's not the Ona Benonit, it's not one of those days where it may happen. It's just she doesn't have a period. I'm sorry, she doesn't have a regular period. So that's called the Isha She'en La Veset Kavua. So, what do the Rishonim say to that? Rashi pretty much says the same thing as Veset Kavua. It makes no difference. This is not the time she's expecting it. So, Lo tzricha b'dika klal. She does not need a b'dika at all, not before Tashmish, not after Tashmish. Great. Rashi makes it easy. There's no difference between a woman who has a vet kavua and one that does not have a kavua. If this is not the time she's expecting it, she doesn't have to check herself right before or right after. Why should she? Make her husband. Then we have an interesting riff. And this riff also opens up a little bit of a discussion. What exactly did he mean in saying what he said? But we're going to follow the Mechaber. As it appears, the way the Mechaber explains it, as he says it in the Beis Yosef, the Rif is saying that a woman who does not have a Veset Kavua, even though in principle we hold like Rashi, right? In other words, that she may not need Bedikas. However, there's a big however. And that however is as follows. The first 3 times she's with her husband, after the blood of the Besulim is finished, the virginity blood, you call it? Huh? After that is gone, because we may be talking about that soon too. Sometimes a chassan did not do the job right, and seeing every time he's with his wife is that same dam besulim. You want to make sure all the dam besulim are out of the way. Huh? Well, the next time around, there's nothing happens. No, in other words, the first time.
I didn't understand what they're out of the way.
Out of the way meaning that.
Make sure.
In other words, the first bia was complete, which sometimes it could easily happen that it was not. Nothing happened. He just didn't break through. Okay? And sometimes he, of course, did everything right and there is no blood. But if she's a real Besula, she's still not clean for 11 days out of 12 days. Because we assume that she did see that perhaps they didn't. If the Besulim are broken in a young woman, usually there should be some blood. Okay. Anyway, we'll get to that. It's a separate halacha. But it is possible that there's still that Besulim happening there. It's not that she's seeing blood as a result of the time. So that's very critical. Oh no, blood again. It's not because of the relation. It's because you didn't do it right the first time. So you see what I mean? So that's what I meant. You have to determine or establish that it's not dam besulim, of course. That's why I'm saying the halacha of the rif is after the dam besulim are done with, after we know there's no dam besulim there, husband is with his wife, the first 3 times, you want to make sure that there's no dam machmas atash. That's the time frame, that's the time when you can establish that the intimate act will not cause her to bleed. And when do you do that? That's the question. Is it only for a woman that has no vested kavua? Is it for every woman you got to check the first? But the Mechaber seems to be quoting the Rif that a woman that does not have a vested kavua, that's the one we're talking about. She needs to check herself. Yes, only the first 3 times.
Saying that for the rest of their life?
No, the first 3 times. Intimate act number 1, Monday. Intimate act number 2.
That's the first day of marriage.
In their marriage. No, the first 3 times in their marriage. Right. But she's with her husband. The man and the woman have to check themselves after Tashmish. What do they have to determine? To make sure that she did not see Machmas Tashmish. That's all. After the first 3 times, if they didn't see any blood, the Rif apparently, I say apparently, not everybody would agree, but it appears to be like that he would hold like Rashi, that she does not need any more b'dikas before or after, even though she does not have a vesed kavua. Why should she check herself? But the first 3 times, she needs to check herself. Maybe she will see dam machmas atash. So the question here is, why should a woman who does not have a vesed kavua, after all we're picking on her, why should she have to check more than the other woman who does have a vesed? Why are we making this woman check herself? I mean, if this is a requirement of all women, I can understand. Okay, make sure don't see dam machmas tashmish, which is, by the way, not very common. Baruch Hashem, for a woman to see dam machmas tashmish, it's a big tragedy. But this woman who does not have a vesed kavua, we're going to require her to check herself before and after, but especially after, because not everybody holds that she has to check her before. So that's why it says, especially afterwards, her and her husband. Why? Maybe she saw dam machmas tashmish. Why should we suspect it by her? So the way that I think it's the Ramban and the Ran, the way they both explain it, the bdika after tashmish, there's another reason why there should be before. The bdika after tashmish, just to make sure there's no dam because of tashmish, this woman has no vesed kavua. Therefore, it is very possible, I'm not going to say highly possible, but it's very possible, that she may see blood as a result of all kinds of mikrim, all kinds of incidents. She ate something, she got her period. She jumped. As a result of external factors, she doesn't have a regular period. A woman who has a regular period, the period comes by itself. She doesn't have to do anything. We are concerned, we suspect, there's a chance. A woman who does not have a regular period, perhaps there's more of a chance that she might see blood as a result of tashmish, because the tashmish is also a type of act, an action that may trigger it. Just like other things we know trigger it. We know there are things that can trigger it. So maybe she's that type of a woman. Because she doesn't have a regular vesed, can trigger it by something. What that something is, I don't know.
That's interesting how you said because she does not can trigger it.
Right.
I was wondering whether one could say around it.
That what?
That the reason, because it's easily triggered by different, therefore the blood that from the triggers overrides and hides the vesed that recognizes.
Isn't that pretty much the same?
No,
what I'm saying? No.
Because now because the one you give reason why does the blood come out when they're in vesed, whereas I'm saying no. Why is it can't observe a rigor? Because all sorts of circumstances will trigger the blood, and that's how you're going to observe a regular vessel.
You know what? I like your explanation, but
I'm
that's what I'm
wondering
trying
whether
to.
one
That's
can
what
say
I'm
that.
trying to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. But you've put it very beautifully. You've explained it very, very truly. I mean, pretty much this is the idea behind it. That it's very possible that something else is triggering it, and we're not even aware of it.
Right, so she wouldn't have, if there were not these other circumstances, by her the blood is triggered by circumstances, the other woman not.
Right.
So the other woman we see, this is when the blood comes, it's the vessel which causes it.
Right.
By this woman, if she didn't have these other circumstances that trigger the blood, we would also see a vessel.
Right.
But since she does have these events, so therefore...
It's understood, right? Yeah.
Since we hold most saying that
But most women today are, we're going to cover that in the next, are chatzi, are half regular, which helps,
saying that they
are not really regular.
right.
Right.
You said that women are
Oh, for sure.
today triggering that from what
Very, very good. Maybe that's what it is. It could be, I didn't think of that. It could be, women are weaker, and so are men. Yeah. And as a result of that, what you know the joke, what came first, the egg or chicken egg? What came first, that women are weaker and therefore their nature has changed, or the nature has changed and therefore they're weaker? But they both are true. The women are weaker today and nature has changed. Rabbis talk about the fact that many things have changed. Yeah, sure. In those days, sure. Yeah, that's part of Yore Deah, the big fall. Not only in the spiritual sense, but apparently in the physical, people are not as strong, they can resist. All right, so based on this explanation of the Rif, that the Rif is saying, I would hold like Rashi, that no bdika would be required for a woman that doesn't have a vesikavu, but the first 3 times I would require it. After, why the after? Because of what we explained, that there is a possibility that something can trigger it, since there's no regular vesed. But not before. In other words, there's no need apparently for the bdika before, supposedly. On that there's a machlokes, we will see. Shitas Aruch and Rabbeinu Hanala is that she needs a bdika before and after, a woman that doesn't have a vesed kavua. They don't talk about the first 3 times. But the husband does not need. That's just a shita that holds that the husband doesn't really require it. It's not required of the husband, but the woman does need it. The Rambam says that it's before and after, and even the husband needs it after the tashvish. And this is not mechumra meikar adin. So that's the difference here between, this is one situation where you have the Rosh, or Ben Chananel, even the Rosh really says that the meikar adin, Rashi is right, he didn't want to oppose Rabbeinu Hananel. That's what he says. Even though meikar adin, Rashi really is right, there shouldn't be a need, but he goes along and says, just check before and after. But he doesn't hold like the Rambam that the husband also has checked. So here, this is the only case where the Rambam is even stricter than Rabbeinu Hananel, the Rosh, that requires even the man to check himself after the fact. So as far as the din of the 3 times, the Beis Yosef holds that she needs bdika before tashmish as well. The Ravid and the Darkei Moshe don't say that she doesn't need one before. So this particular bdika before, I mean, we understood the bdika after. Was there any blood? Why would they require, the Beis Yosef explains, why should there be a bdika before, during the first 3 times?
No, by a woman who does have blood yet.
Yeah.
She's not allowed to be.
She still needs to check.
She has to.
She needs to check.
She's allowed to be with her.
Well, only the time before. There's harchaka. There's the harchaka.
So they're not allowed to be together.
Right, but after she checked herself, she's allowed to. Right?
So if the Western is right, she has checked herself and to be during this time.
Yeah,
for her husband.
right. If during the time, yeah.
So what asked?
Once she's checked herself during the time she's expecting it, and sees herself clean, and she's clean.
Wouldn't that expect what you just asked?
That what?
That by a woman who doesn't have a. Because by her, it's only.
No, I didn't say a woman that doesn't have. A woman doesn't have a regular vesed during the time. During the time, we're not talking about during the time where it may happen. Even during the time where it's for sure not going to happen.
Saying it can happen by her.
Yeah, but
Assumption, like by a woman who
it can. You're right. It can happen, but this is even true. This opinion would hold even any time, even because we're going to be learning about that next. there could be a woman who has a Beset Chatzi Kavua.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's something
So in other words, there's a Shita that would hold she always have to check herself regardless, just because she's not Kavua. But perhaps you can say that too. As a result of her not being Kavua, it could happen anytime. Yeah, right.
So she would
So in a
always
sense,
be
yeah.
under this assumption,
Right.
like a woman who does have a vested and the time has arrived.
That's very true. To an extent, that's
So like
true.
she has to, during that time when
Yes,
she has
yes,
a
that's what they would
this
hold.
one doesn't have
That's
that.
why they hold that, probably. Yeah, that's part of it, because of it could happen anytime. Yeah. All right.
Biologically, it cannot.
Well, right. It shouldn't, but it can. You know, she doesn't have a veset kavua. I know situations where a woman had her veset, went to the mikvah, and after 3 days she got it again. Now, and she wasn't sure what it was.
Thing by her or
It's very rare. It happens once every couple years.
by her? Or by
It has happened. Not that it happens, it has happened. Why? Deficiency in iron? Yeah, it could be anemic. It could be all kinds of things. But anyway, so back to back to school. You have to start counting again. Anyway, why would the Beis Yosef, or why would the Rif, the way the Beis Yosef learns, require Bedika before Tashmir the first 3 times? After the fact, after the Tashmir, okay, maybe she saw because of that, but why would it happen before? So I saw an interesting explanation based on the way, I think it's the Ran, interesting explanation, that it's very important, it would be an important check. If you want to go ahead with this checking the first 3 times, check before just as much as you can check afterwards. Why? If you don't check before, and you found blood afterwards, they say, she saw blood because of the tashmish. Who says? And maybe she saw blood before she had tashmish. You know what you're doing to this woman if you're going to accuse her, or not accuse her, you're going to say that she has this problem, that she's seeing dam machmas basha, and in reality it's not. In reality she really saw the blood before. Why don't you eliminate that possibility by checking before? Maybe she's already unclean, and it's not dam machmas basha. If you're only going to wait to check afterwards, you're going to say, this is machmas basha. Maybe it's not. Eliminate that by checking before. Okay. Does that make sense?
Sure.
That's what the Beis Yosef holds. Yeah. All right, so let's see it inside. אם אין לה וסת קבוע 3 פעמים, 3 times הראשונים, צריכים לבדוק קודם תשמיש ואחר תשמיש. You should check yourself before and after. הוא בעד שלו, והיא בעד שלה, she in her head, her cloth, והיא מוחזקה באותם גיל פעמים שאינה רואה דם מחמת תשמיש, if she, in those 3 times, established that she does not see dam as a result of the intimate act, שוב אינה צריכה בדיקת כלל. She never has to check herself, לא לפני תשמיש ולא לאחר תשמיש, during the time when she's not expecting it. At all, in other words, even though she's not regular. להרמב"ם בהראש, she brings again, he mentions their names. להרמב"ם בהראש, כל זמן שאין לה וסת צריכה היא בדיקה לעולם. She always will need a בדיקה, קודם תשמיש ואחר תשמיש. And the Rambam matzi שגם הבעל יבדוק עצמו אחת תשמיש. Rambam also requires of the husband to check himself after the tashmish. So Mechaber here, Paskins like the Rif, not like Rashi, which holds that even if she doesn't have a Veset Kavua, she doesn't require it all. He says the first 3 times I will hold, exactly like the Rif says, that the first 3 times, yes. Afterwards, no. Now the Shach is very interesting here. The Shach says, Mapitom. Where did we hear something like that? He says everybody misunderstood the Rishonim. This is a very interesting Shach. He comes out against everybody. And he says no. He says just stick with Rashi. But if you look at the Achronim, I don't know if all of them, but a lot of Achronim say a word yourself the first 3 times. Just to make sure that nothing has happened. It's not an obligation. I mean, we have the Mechaber, who says yes, and we have others that say no. But apparently the Achronim, I think, follow the Mechaber pretty much. He says just, we have this Shita, and to be on the safe side, just check yourself the first 3 times. Now the Shach would also agree that if she did see Dam Machmas Tashmish the first time, 1 time, she then has to check herself several times more, at least 3 times, to make sure she see it all the time. The only thing is the Shach says, but if there was no Dam at all, she doesn't have to check herself. No, whether it's the first 3 times or not. Pischei Tshuva, I think, brings down here that all the women who are mesuleket damim, who don't have blood, are not supposed to be having. A woman who's pregnant, even though it's 3 months, an elderly woman, of course, after menopause, a woman who's nursing, they don't have to check themselves, even according to this sheet. the shittas, even according to the shittas that would require it before and after, because the chances are they're not going to have any blood. So we don't have to be machmir for them. In other words, if you want to follow their chumras, in these instances of mesulekes domim, as they're called, where the dam should not be around anymore, she wouldn't have to check herself before or after. Ramah. The Ramah says on this, if at one night they're together several times, they don't have to check themselves each time to see there's blood. They do clean themselves every time. That they should do. Clean themselves. In the morning, and then they check themselves once in the morning. If they found blood, then it's meal. So what's interesting about this is that in this case, in this particular situation, where several times it may occur at night, the Chachamim were mekel. In other words, they did not demand of them every single time to check. Once is enough in the morning, but they do have to clean themselves after each time. And I believe that some explain that this Ramah is especially, I shouldn't say especially, this Ramah is only in the case when it's not the first 3 times. I think there's quite a few, even the Badi Ashu, I think I saw. I think some say that if it's during the first 3, husband and wife, they should check every time if it's several times a night. But anyway, the Ramah seems to just say a blanket statement that it's enough to check in the morning once, but they should clean themselves every time. However, if she cleans herself once or whatever, several times, and she lost the aid, the cloth, now she cannot be with her husband until she checks herself. Once that aid is lost, the evidence has been lost, the potential evidence. So now she needs to check herself. Inspected it, yeah.
So after she inspected the
right, yeah. Some say that she should, that the checking should really be done here even before they are together. But again, that doesn't seem to be what the Ramah is saying here. In other words, that perhaps the first bdika you do need, and the last bdika you don't need till the morning. Some learn it that way, because the Ramah does not talk about the first bdika before she's with her husband, only the second bdika after she's done. The Ramah doesn't seem to say anything like that, so I'm not going to say that that's a requirement, but some are machmir that perhaps the first bdika, yes, the second bdika after the tashma is not necessary until the morning you check it. But if she lost it, then she can't be with her husband until she checks herself. Losing it is something else. Or since she does not have vesed kavua, we suspect that there can be a problem here. So if she lost the evidence, she needs to check herself. All right, Sif Gimel, Isha Sheina Roa bepachos miyud daled yomim achar tfilosa v'lacha yud daled yomim en lakeva ad yod daled yom dina kedisha sheyesh lo vesed. So this is a woman that has a vesed of chatzi kavua. It's half regular. What does that mean? Under 14 days after her tefillah from the mikvah, she for sure won't see it. For 14 days, she won't see it. And by the way, that's interesting, because the average period is between 20. So if she knows for sure, from her experience, of course, that until 14 days after the tefillah, she doesn't get it. Ein la keva. I'm sorry, that before, less than 14 days after she doesn't see it, but after the 14 days are over, it can happen any time. So until the 14th day, dina kedin isha sheyesh lo vesed. Until the 14th day, she has the halacha like a woman who has a vesed. Because up until then, she for sure doesn't get it. She's never gotten it. So we would give her the halachas of a woman who has a vesed until then. But after that, she will have the status of a woman who does not have a vesed. For all that pertains or relates to such a status. In other words, there's a difference. A woman that has a vesed kavua has certain halachas. A woman that has no vesed kavua has certain other halachas. So here, we know for sure she doesn't get it until the 28th day was over, until 14 days of the tefillah. Then, until then, it's pretty much a regular vesed. And all the halachas that relate to that apply until then. But all the halachas that would relate to afterwards would apply to her like a woman who doesn't have vesed kavua after that juncture. No, in her case, yes. Till 14 days.
No, I'm wondering if you could have a woman for 16 days.
Yeah. Whatever it is. She knows that up until this point, after her tefillah and mikvah, she's definitely not going to get it. It could be 10 days. Right? So he just gave us an example.
Okay,
whatever it is. Sure. Till then, for sure, she never got it. It will always be beyond that. Well, beyond that, it would be a vesed sheno kavua. because she doesn't have a regular day. But we know for sure that till then she doesn't get. Well, until then it's like a Vesed Shavua. סעיף ד' יש לאדם להניח את אשתו שתבדוק בעת שלו מתוך שנאמנת על שלה נאמנת על שלו. A man can allow, can trust his wife to check his cloth. If she wants to inspect it, maybe she has a better eye. Because she can be trusted on his just like she's trusted on hers. Here the Mechaber is just telling us, a man doesn't have to be concerned. He can let his wife check his bdika, in other words, his aid. Let her do it in the same way that she can be trusted for everything else that she does for herself. She can be trusted to check his too. There's no problem with that. Man, he can allow her to check his. Sif hey. This is the last halacha here, and it's not a complete halacha, because the Mechaber says, by the way, this halacha we're going to be discussing the next siman. But because it's related to what we learned, he mentions it. So in case you're curious, he says, don't forget, I discussed this later. A woman who sees blood 3 times consecutively. Consecutively is a very important key here. As a result of tashmish, it's obvious why it came. She can no longer ever be intimate with that man. With another man, maybe yes, but not with that man. And we will see all the halachas that relate to this kind of a situation in the following siman. So the Mechaber, of course, talks about it here briefly. It is a possibility. He mentioned it before, that one of the reasons why necessary at times. But if in fact it is found out that that's the fact, that creates a problem for this marriage. And that's one of the subjects in the next siman, which will come to next time. Yeah. We'll talk about that. So this is as I said earlier, I don't know. I don't know myself how many times that happened, how frequent. I'll look into it perhaps if I have the time, but it's a very sad situation, because regardless of how you cut it, as they say in English, they can't be intimate. And this is a young couple. But that's the halacha. That's it. If it's been determined, established that that's what's causing it, and this is a possibility. So we'll see how to deal with this next time. All right.